the world before the crisis was unfair, was dangerous, was polluting, was inefficient. And today, there are billions of dollars and euros flooding the markets for an economic recovery. And we absolutely need to use this money to replace what was polluting before by what can protect the environment.
It all starts with you.
Together we will change this world for the better.
There is no planet B. We can't go to Mars. We can't go anywhere else.
We want a world where girls and women do not live in fear.
We are seeing all kinds of disasters of climate change right now.
What do we want?
When I realized that climate change was one of the biggest threats, I decided to start striking every Friday to hold governments and leaders accountable for the mess that they have put us in.
Humans have never walked on an Earth this hot, with this much CO2 in the atmosphere. The last time CO2 was this high was 3 million years ago. The temperature was 2 or 3 degrees hotter, and sea levels were 15 to 25 meters higher.
Many of the people in my country would say that we have much bigger problems and the climate crisis is the least of those. But I believe that we cannot achieve any other problems. If we have climate change, we cannot achieve any sustainable development goal without addressing the issue of climate change.
For Africa, the climate change is a huge challenge, in particular in terms of impact. But at the same time, it's a fantastic opportunity because of the investment that can take place there and bring the continent to really the green economy, leapfrogging all the old technologies. I even trust even more on the youth movement, the climate march movement that take place in Africa. It's really a region where there is so much opportunities and so much energy to go forward.
I think when people see the work that you are doing, when people see the authenticity of your work, they are actually compelled to support you and see that you drive change in your community.
We need new technologies, modern technologies, in order to save energy, to save natural resources, in order to create more jobs and make more profit by replacing what was polluting before by what can protect the environment. This is what I call the qualitative growth.
Every time we want a change, the response is this would be negative for jobs and for economic growth. We have to win that battle, to demonstrate and to show that this is not a direction of society to be worse. It's to be much better. It's a desirable society.
Well, I love sharks, as you can probably tell, and the marine environment. And it doesn't matter what animal you like, I realise that they all face the same threats, whether it be plastic pollution or climate change.
Nous avons perdu 68% des espèces de vertébrés dans les 40 dernières années. 68%. Ça vaut la peine de répéter ce chiffre parce que c'est absolument terrifiant. Pour le climat, on peut s'imaginer qu'une meilleure gestion des gaz à effet de serre pourrait nous permettre d'influencer le développement du phénomène. Mais ces 68% d'espèces, elles ne reviendront jamais. Elles sont parties pour toujours.
Every single year, we are killing 100 million sharks. That is free every single second of every single day. Let's just think about that for a second. 3, 6, 9, 12. We shouldn't be scared of sharks, we should be scared for them.
An awful lot of the problem of biodiversity has had to do with the fact that humans have been continually appropriating the land that's being used for a very small number of species that they rely upon. And the question of whether or not it's still possible to leave land aside for other species in other parts of the world while still being able to feed an extra 5-6 billion people, which isn't very avoidable at this time. This is going to happen, but we have to solve that problem.
Science shows that the marine environment is fast approaching an irreversible tipping point. We have perhaps 10 years left to stop this happening, so time to take action is running out. We must act now, as the sooner we do so, the easier it will be.
Pour préserver la biodiversité, je pense qu'il est important de ne plus considérer la nature comme une ressource gratuite qui doit être asservie pour créer la prospérité humaine, mais plutôt comme une alliée, comme un compagnon avec lequel nous pouvons développer une collaboration qui nous permettra de décrire un futur durable.
It's definitely easier to go to a shop and just buy without thinking. It's without worrying about what materials to use. How are these materials going to impact the environment?
The industry has a huge carbon footprint with its own supply chain, but also with the retail operations, with everything. When a brand farms out production, the production goes to a first-tier supplier, and then this tier supplier may subcontract it to another tier of suppliers who can then subcontract it again. So you have up to 4 tiers of suppliers in this global fashion industry, and this is one of the problems of the industry. You do not control the labor standards, the impact on the environment in all the layers of production.
But I think Black Friday is actually a proof of overconsumption and our lack of connection, because we're buying things that we don't need with money that we may not even have, right? So I believe that before buying in Black Friday, we need to ask ourselves, how can these prices be so low? And where does all of these that is not sold go?
The future is in circularity. We need this industry to become climate positive. Products that can be recycled, reused, repurposed, a different way to buy fashion, swaps, renting. This is the future of the industry along with decarbonization, which means a different business model, a radically different business model.
Ahora debemos empezar a crear con el propósito de apoyar a la salud humana y ambiental y así restaurar nuestros recursos por medio del diseño regenerativo.
You do not see enough reform in the fashion industry because it's still a business whose business model generates a lot of profits. There are actors and stakeholders of the industry that are working sincerely to change it, to reform it, but it takes time. It's the moment of creative destruction and regeneration.
L'engagement de chacun va être déterminant pour faire bouger les choses. Beaucoup de marques ou de groupes dans la mode ou dans le luxe veulent faire bouger les choses. Ils savent de toute façon que les jeunes sont en quête de sens, en quête de durabilité. C'est une manière de penser collective qui doit bouger.
The issue of gender-based violence is a global issue that everyone in the whole world faces.
Gender-based violence or violence against women and girls is a global pandemic that affects 1 in every 3 women in their lifetime. The numbers are staggering. 35% women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence.
To reach a population, personally, I cannot move in every village in the country. So I use radio stations that has larger coverage to really talk to the community and also track their interest.
And COVID-19 pandemic is having a catastrophic impact on women and girls globally. We know that extended lockdowns have led probably to more cases of violence in the home, unwanted pregnancies, child marriages, and female genital mutilations. There is a clear link between the lockdown measures and the increased number on child marriages. The truth is that many parents who have their children out of school now see marrying them as an option to protect them from a future that's very uncertain. Also, children are not going to school, and it's very hard to keep track on them and to make sure that their rights are not violated in any way.
We want a world where girls and women do not live in fear, where boys and men are supportive, and governments or world leaders should put in place policies that governs or protects girls from all forms of violence.
There is the perception that the well-being of a woman and a girl is still less important than the well-being of a man and a boy, because they are seen as less powerful, they play social roles that are perceived as less relevant. This has to do with an entrenched patriarchal structure and social norms. They need to be challenged and transformed.
I want the others who live in a more comfortable, privileged life to realize the hardships that we've been through and hopefully to learn from us as refugees, because we have a lot to offer.
We have at least 79.5 million people around the world who have been forced to flee their homes. More than half of the world's school-age refugee children do not get an education.
شوية كتاب بالإنجليزي إنه تقوس العالم مريت لأنه ما عم بيعطونا شهادة.
As 12 years old in a new country, the only place that I could have friends is a school. And the only place that I had friends was the refugee camp. So I wanted to preserve these friendships. And this is where the idea of the school started.
Because what I see, we are trying to put a lot of energy on the humanitarian needs. We put a lot of money to respond to the life-saving. But I think peace can also save much more lives. We have to really work in parallel. If we don't find a solution to peace, we will have more children affected, more children without education, more children lost.
Classrooms are a safe haven and can protect children from very many things, including recruitment into armed groups, child labor, sexual exploitation, and child marriage. So it's important for a child to be able to experience that classroom environment, to learn about themselves and about the world, and this will help them to rebuild and live their lives better after conflict. Education also heightens the risk of violence and conflict. If a child is not educated, where will that affected community get its teachers? Where will it get its architects? Where will it get its doctors? So it is very important for a child as a refugee to be able to have an education like any other child in any part of the world.
What we wanted is to hold our politicians and governors accountable.
The situation is very dire. What makes it dire is an accumulation of crisis in Lebanon. There is a political crisis with a great of difficulty in forming a government. The middle class has fallen into poverty and the poor have fallen into hunger. There is a complete breakdown in public services. There is a sanitary crisis, a health crisis linked to COVID. And there's one more, which is a security and humanitarian crisis linked to the explosion that destroyed the harbor of Beirut in August.
And it was really hard to be taken seriously. We also faced a lot of pressure on social media because we were kind of the only account that was surveying whatever was happening. And so we had so much, messages, so much activity. We even got restricted at some point. seen how small-scale initiatives are doing the most difference this year, and this is kind of what motivated us.
I wanted to transform the website into a more interactive, personalized website, a hub for teenagers where they can interact with different NGOs, where we can make and develop the grassroots, and we'll then talk with some of official authorities and we'll make the change.
It is time now in Lebanon for a complete change in the ruling class. And the young people have to understand that time and numbers are on their side. They are the largest young generation that has ever existed. They need to change the culture in many places so that corruption is simply unacceptable at all levels.
The world is, I genuinely believe, moving towards a more sustainable future, but it needs to go further and it needs to go faster. The scale of the transformation that will be required is a scale of transformation that will require action by all parts of society.